What's going on, casters? Dylan from Pandito Gaming, and today I'm bringing you a video on how I think no matter where you're at in the hobby, no matter how long you've been here, I'm going to explain to you how you can get to the point where you can be selling Elestrals cards from opening packs or selling sealed product in about 3 or 4 months. Let's get into it. So, first of all, when it comes to selling, there's a few factors that you have to think of. Primarily, the things that matter the most are where you're sourcing your product from and how you're selling things. Now, how you're selling things, there's a lot of different pieces that go into that. A lot of that is finding the place to sell them at. Another idea is building trust and a reputation within those places. And we're going to cover all of these sections throughout this video. The first thing that I will point out is that first piece of where you're selling. You have to figure out where you're selling your product. Now, something to keep in mind is that there's many different avenues to sell Elestrals cards. Obviously, you could go really far into it and have your own store or have your own website that sells them. If you're already an LGS owner, adding Elestrals to your list of things that you sell is not that complicated. If you do not own an LGS and you're just somebody who enjoys the game, who opens cards, that's where I came from. That's where I started when Kickstarter came out, and I've continued that through all this time. I don't think there's a very high bar to get to that point. So when you're selling, the three main online paths that you can go to other than building your own website are the Elestrals Marketplace, the primary Discord server for that, eBay, and TCG Player. Now, if you're in another country outside of the United States, you may or may not have access to TCG Player. There's a lot of different places like Card Market and other avenues that Elestrals just isn't as popular in. Unfortunately, I'm not an expert on things outside of the US. If you're a non-US seller and you're interested in that kind of stuff, let me know and I can do some research and help figure some of that out. But I'm going to primarily focus on those three US based, which eBay is more global as well. But I'm going to focus more on those avenues. So the Elestrals Marketplace and Discord, that's pretty easy to access. There's lots of people who already know how to do it. If you want to get a link to it, let me know. Unfortunately, Discord links expire after a while, so I'm not just going to leave one in the video, but let me know how I can get you connected with that. Getting in there is very easy. You can make sales and buying posts right away. You can see auctions. The key thing about building a reputation with the Elestrals Marketplace is to become a trusted seller. You must have verified sales with reviews at least 15 times. Now, this is the lowest barrier of entry of all the different places that we're going to be talking about. You will need to have a PayPal account. Venmo is probably fine too, and you have to be able to accept goods and services, which isn't very complicated. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you'll want to set up some kind of shipping service like PayPal shipping or Pirate Ship or something that allows you to buy discounted labels for when people buy more expensive or more bulk worth of cards. But for the most part, selling in the marketplace is the lowest barrier of entry. It is one of the easiest places to get good deals on things because there's a good environment there. A lot of the people who are in there are just trying to exchange cards for other cards, so you can get lots of trades from there as well. It's probably one of the worst options as far as getting the highest value out of your cards because most people who are in that server, they're looking for deals. They're actively high level active participants in the community, so they are not looking to pay sticker price for things. They will be looking for, hey, I know I'm saving you money from selling on TCG Player, so give me 10% off, which again, it's not a big deal. That's a good thing. That helps the community move. And like I said, it's the lowest barrier of entry. It is also the lowest traffic of all the places that I'll be discussing. There are a good number of sales there, but the sales on TCG Player and eBay significantly trump the number of sales in the Discord server by multiple amounts. But it's very easy to get involved, and you can just post what you have. The biggest negatives to it overall, like I said, it has a lower number of users inside of it, so the reach is a lot less. There, it is more people are looking for bulk deals or percentages off because they're paying through something that has less fees. There's also, a need to include pictures and proof of what you have, which other platforms may or may not require you to do that. And going through PayPal Goods and Services, because PayPal Goods and Services and other places don't work super well with trading cards, sometimes that could be a little sketchier. There's a little more risk that you're taking on, not a substantial amount. I've never had anybody do me wrong on there. But there are, Discord servers that have had issues before, so you'll have to make sure you're being careful, that you're making sure you verify with people ahead of time, that you're putting tracking on orders, that you're working with trusted people, all that kind of thing. But it is the lowest barrier of entry. There are tons of sales there and lots of very smart people who can help you find stuff, and you can use it as a sourcing point as well. Now, the next lowest barrier of entry, I would probably say, is probably TCG Player from the getting a reputation standpoint. While TCG Player is harder to get a seller's account for than eBay, you can just sign up and go. TCG Player, you have to actually include all of your tax information. They have a review process to verify you. My cousin actually just opened his TCG Player store a few weeks ago, and it took him about a week to get registered. I've heard other stories where somebody tried and it took them multiple months to get registered. So it's kind of a mixed bag. But TCG Player is a lot more powerful than obviously a Discord server is. You can track your inventory. There's automatic pricing. You can have your stuff compared to other people. When buyers open things, they don't need to necessarily know who you are before they buy things. They'll just see things in the listed prices. Now, there's some weird things on there. I've explained in another video how the shipping confusion can work in my buying Elestrals video. There's a lot of just nuances you need to learn about it. I've also, if you watch my bulk video, explained how they do have some tools that sellers can use to automatically underlist compared to competitors, and that can be really dangerous if you don't understand it. A lot of people are scared about getting scammed by people on TCG Player. I can tell you that less than 1%, somewhere around 0.2% of all orders have ever had a buyer actually do or say anything about not receiving anything. And that's through closing in on 4,000 orders at this point through TCG Player. It's just overblown. It doesn't happen as often as people think it does. There's not very many scams. It's just something that people are worried about. I would say the biggest advantage of TCG Player, other than it is the highest traffic of all of these websites, TCG Player easily sells more Elestrals cards than any other source, other than maybe Shop Elestrals, if I had to guess. It hands down is easiest to list things. There is a pricing tool that allows you to filter by sets, which does not exist in eBay or Discords. There's ways to see what the competitors have listed without having to open things, though sometimes those are glitchy and that's not very fun. I might make a video on some of the weird quirks of TCG Player at some point. You don't have to worry about random people messaging you and asking for discounts on a regular basis. People can do that. Just 90% of people have no idea how that works. On eBay, you'll regularly get messages from people like trying to lowball your posts. And in TCG Player, you almost never get any of that. So definitely the organization is better. You usually get better prices for your cards because there's less people who do list on here, and this is just the general marketplace. So you'll get market price for cards regardless. Now, people could argue maybe TCG Player is overpriced on some things, but the thing is, people are buying it on TCG Player. So that's a big part of the market, and it's more people than in other places. So I would argue TCG Player is closer to marketplace than pretty much anywhere else. There's also just I think the biggest problem with TCG Player that I've run into is the fact that it doesn't always upload the sets in time, and you can't sell something that isn't in their database. So if Snowshade, for whatever reason, got delayed being posted on TCG Player by a week, you just couldn't sell Snowshade on there. I think also the advantages they give to LGSs are a little frustrating at times. You cannot list pre-orders if you're not a brick and mortar LGS on TCG Player. So it's really hard to sell sealed product at release for any reasonable price because the LGSs just get all of the pre-orders exclusively. The fees obviously are a big deal. TCG Player will charge a rough rate around 13 or 14%. The biggest caveat there is that it can be upwards of 20 or 50% for low cost cards, which can really eat away at your margins in a lot of scenarios, but especially for those low cost cards. Again, that's in my bulk video if you're interested in learning more about that. And they've changed their rates on a regular basis, but they handle sales tax. They handle any complications with listing things and making it easy for buyers to find things. They do always land on the side of the buyer in disputes, 99 times out of 100. So if there are disputes, you'll probably lose. But like I said, it doesn't happen often enough for that to really matter. So for the most part, I would definitely rank TCG Player as the second highest barrier of entry of our three. But hands down, if you're only going to get into one area and you're willing to put the effort in, TCG Player is the best place to start. eBay, the biggest complication of eBay is that you have to include pictures with every listing. Like I said, it's really easy to get in on eBay and start listing things. It is a much harder barrier to get to the trusted status. I don't know if I mentioned it on TCG Player, but you only have to hit 51 sales to hit the highest seller level with the highest level of trust on it. On eBay, you have to get 100 sales within a calendar year, and it has to total at least $1,000. That is by far the hardest barrier of entry. You can't just quickly brute force it like you can on other systems. You could sell just like $1 or $2 singles in the Elestrals Marketplace Discord or TCG Player, and they all count the same. But on eBay, you actually have to sell a significant amount of value to hit those points. And it's not that trusted seller necessarily is like something that people will only buy from you if you're a trusted seller, but it gives you better listing priorities. There are better advertisements, and it's just in general better. I think the biggest drawback of eBay outside of that is the way that results are listed. The search can be really complicated. You can't find specific cards. You have to just type in free text. It's very hard to find things that you want sometimes, and people can pay to have their cards listed above yours. Now, most cards in Elestrals don't have multiple listings. So you paying to advertise for your cards is not worth your effort, especially when you first get started. It's something that I would never advise doing in general, but especially when you're brand new, but they put it in your face all the time. And if someone else does list cards that you're trying to list, they can pay to push yours down. And that's not a good feeling. So eBay, I think it does have a lot of good points to it, especially because it opens you up to international sellers or buyers rather. eBay will handle international shipping for you. Once you're a trusted seller, they will let you ship it to them and then they'll ship it to the international buyer. And that is the most amazing part of eBay, in my opinion, because it opens up your potential buyer pool significantly. I've sold probably thousands of dollars in the last 2 years to people outside of the United States through eBay. A lot of promos and reverse sellers and serialized sellers have gone, across the pond or towards Canada just because eBay allowed that, and that was very helpful for my business. So I would recommend of those three options personally that you pick two of them to start in. Don't try to get both TCG Player and eBay running at the same time. I would probably say, either pick just TCG Player or eBay, or pick TCG Player or eBay and the Elestrals Marketplace. I don't think there's any reason not to get involved in the Elestrals Marketplace if you're looking to actually make money from Elestrals, because it's good for both sourcing product and selling it. Now, how do you get into these platforms and actually get to that trusted status? I think the easiest way to do that is through singles. So finding a way to get a big injection of singles for yourself and getting to those thresholds, especially for the marketplace and for TCG player. There's not a requirement on how much or how much value you're selling in a single transaction. So the difference between selling a $300 serialized stellar and $10 worth of playable cards, there's no difference. But on eBay, it does matter. So the easiest way to do that, I have made some videos before on ethereal and upcoming for relevant for Snowshade. I showed a video on how I made money opening Sunstrike starter decks, and I think that will also apply to Snowshade. So if you can get your hands on reasonably priced ethereal ascended caster kits or Snowshade starter decks, I think you could easily get, let's say, a case of starter decks from Snowshade, which, if you're getting them for $24, $25 each, that's a $250 investment. I think you could net out even on those starter decks. You could sell the playable cards in the starter deck, you could sell the hits from the packs, and I think you would roughly net out at zero. But the benefit is that now you can sell those cards and get the reviews on TCG Player and in the Elestrals marketplace to get yourself to that trusted seller status. Now, potentially you could open more than that, but I'm trying to explain how you can do it relatively cheap, right? A $250 investment that I think over the course of 2 months you sell cards and you make that back, or maybe you get really lucky and you hit a serialized stellar or a reverse stellar in those starter decks or packs, and you end up making money from that and getting your reviews. Especially with Ascended Caster kits, I think that's a real possibility, right? Could you buy a case of 10, get 100 packs at a total of 500-ish dollars, $600 at most, maybe, and then you end up selling those hits, those cards that you pull to get yourself that trusted seller status, that level 4 seller. I think there's really good possibility for that. I think that's very reasonable. Now, I probably should have worked this in at the very beginning. This is not financial advice. This is just me recommending, if I were to start fresh, what I would do to get into the state where I'm at today. I think it's just that first piece of finding your sales avenues and building your reputation is the most important part of it. Now, the next part that we should talk about is sourcing your inventory. As I said, there are opportunities in different sets. Shattered Stars, especially, I think, is a great way to get cards, get singles, get boxes, and be able to sell them. Mainline sets are a little bit harder. And Divine Champions, both Firestorm and Sunstrike, have been net positive EVs if you go through starter decks. Even booster boxes, I think, if you got them cheap enough, would work for that as well. But Snowshade, we don't 100% know yet. We don't know all the cards. We don't know the starter decks yet, but I feel like it's going to be on the same level of Sunstrike. Will that continue into the next set? Will double starter decks go away? Will box toppers go away? Will they have bigger print runs, and so serialized cards are harder to hit? Like, we don't know the future. So finding a way to get a better influx of cards is very important. Now, for me, I personally only want to spend an hour or two a day at most on my card business. So I'm not looking to source cards all the time. I can tell you I posted something looking for Shattered Stars cards at a very bulk discounted price, and I got a whole bunch of them. I could spend tons of time doing that for lots of different cards and just buy things at 70, 80% of market and then sell them at full market. I don't think there's enough market cap in Elestrals to do that for a full-time job. And I don't know that I would want to, even if I could. That's just not something that I think is worth my time necessarily. I have other places that I'd rather spend my time. But could you spend, a few hours a week sourcing some things like very cheap stellars, looking and hunting auctions inside of the Elestrals marketplace, buying a card that somebody's just trying to get rid of for $130 and being able to flip it for 200 or 250 within a couple months? I think that's very reasonable. You can also target potentially getting into the Elestrals wholesale. Now, I will say that there is a requirement that you have to have a website to sell from with that. You cannot get into the wholesale program without having a website. And if you want the even cheaper route of going through actual distributors, you have to have a brick and mortar store right now. Those requirements may change at some point, but the TCG market in general is just so hot at the moment. They have too many people asking to get in, and not enough seats. So you probably won't be able to get into a distributor very easily. Now, if there's anybody out there that is a distributor or knows a distributor and they want to give a guy a hookup, reach out to me and let me know. I'd love to get in myself. But I personally only have access to the wholesale, and I buy lots of stuff off of the marketplace Discord channels. And that's where I recommend you probably source the cards. So, really, I think over the course of maybe 1 to 2 months, maybe 3 months if you account for how long it takes to sell everything, if you can go and find good deals on Ethereal or Snowshade starter decks, and you go buy enough to get enough singles, you get yourself on either TCG Player or eBay, and you start selling on the Elestrals marketplace. I think you can be up to that top tier seller within 3 months pretty easily, and start getting a flow of orders. After a certain point, maybe you decide to go and build your own website or something else, but you don't have to, right? I just made my website like 5 months ago, plus or minus. And I've made, you've seen my videos. Hopefully, at this point, I've sold over 40,000. Actually, I've hit 50,000 in the last month worth of Elestrals in less than 3 years doing this. So it's definitely something that you can do, that you can make money on, even if all you're doing it for is to make more money, to buy more Elestrals cards, or to help fix your car when something happens to it, right? Like, it's just a good way to make money on a relatively low effort, right? I haven't put more than 2 hours a week into what I really just for Elestrals. I usually put, maybe a handful of hours in outside of release weeks, where release weeks, it takes a long time to open packs, but that's a lot of fun to me. I love doing that. So if that kind of thing is interesting to you, hopefully this kind of gave you a good blueprint of how I would go about doing it. Feel free to reach out if this is something you're interested in and you want more information, you want to chat about it. Again, I'm probably going to try to do a live stream here in the next week or so, just so I can do a Q&A open for people. But yeah, hopefully this was informative. Hopefully this gave you guys some ideas. If you've done this yourself before and you think I missed something, what do you think it was? Leave a comment for me. If you like this kind of content, remember to subscribe to the channel. But that's all I've got for you guys today. I'm out.